Well, hello, listeners, and welcome back to the Purposeful Marketing Podcast. Just Aaron and James here today. And again, for new listeners, what we do is we pick a topic and have some dialogue about it. And within that topic, I hope you find some truth, hope you find some excitement, some engagement, or maybe some new understanding about marketing, because we believe that the conversations we have every day provide value to us, and we hope they provide value to you. Today's topic is one that was getting me sort of fired up before we hit record because it's something I deal with a lot. And we're going to really center around content today. And what is good content and what is bad content? And we're going to kind of deconstruct it, take it many different ways. But what made me think about this topic recently is writing ad copy specifically for my clients and thinking about this thought. Can you really change someone's mind? And does good content do that? Now, I need to kind of do a little spiel about one of the greats, David Ogilvy, because as I've been reading his book on advertising, he talks about this, and he's been talking about this the whole entire time he was alive doing this job, which is you can't create demand, right? People's pain points, their thoughts, their desires, they're already innately in them. Copy's job is not to create demand out of nothing. It's to help them understand what they need to solve their pain point. And that's kind of my paraphrasing of it. But I wanted to use that for framing. So then James and I can just generally talk about this, like, what is good content? So I'm going to throw it over to you, James, and we can see where this goes.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to start, just because like the terminology surrounding marketing is just so it obfuscates like what you're actually talking about, which is like why occasionally you'll have people like get all fired up on LinkedIn about like, yeah, this is why demand generation sucks. Is because some guy David Ogilvy knew said you couldn't create demand, and it's like, all right, we're totally not talking about the point anymore. But I think like the reason that it's important to think about what good or bad content is, even if you're not going to come to a conclusion, because no one's got the answer to that question. People have a lot of their own opinions about it. It's just that if you're gonna market in that way, like if you're going to put content in front of people and really wait for them to get enough value out of that they come to you and raise their hand and say, I now want to buy things from you. The content does, in fact, have to be good. It just can't be bad. If you're pushing bad content onto people, you're doing law of averages marketing. You're just like hoping that at some point someone sees this that just so desperately, like let's say you're selling fire hoses to fire departments. Like you're just hoping that one of your ads finds its way to a fire department that needs a hose so badly, and they're so time strapped, and they have such a huge budget that they just don't care. And they're just like, sign me up. Like, and that happens. Like you get fake wins like that. But in terms of like good content, I am also of the opinion that you can't change someone's beliefs. Like people believe the things that they believe. It's not about logic. It's not about, everyone's seen this. The more logical you get with someone who's like just really fervent in holding a belief, it doesn't help them change their mind, So like it's worth letting go of that. Like that is not what a conversion is. A conversion is not, I have changed my mind into wanting your thing. A conversion is just something way, way less complicated than that. So I had mentioned to Aaron before we hit record that I've been thinking about, like what is successful content versus unsuccessful content, or what does good content do that bad content doesn't do. I think it comes down to two things. I think good content engages the prospect with your point of view. It connects this person's thoughts to how you think about the world as a company or a person. And then it just gives them something of value, hopefully that they can take and hold on to beyond, the time they spend scrolling on their feed. I mean, I would boil it down to those two things, and none of that has to do with changing someone's mind.
I think that's great. I think when I'm asking this question, generally my thought goes to good content has purpose, but what that purpose is different than I think what everyone else is talking about. And what I hear a lot, again, in the LinkedIn echo chamber, that we are a part of, I mean, myself and Mary is a part of as co-host of the show, is generally like content is supposed to make our customers change their mind into buying today. I don't think that's the purpose of content. I think, again, what James has laid out here is very interesting. It's, maybe good content, the purpose is to offer your point of view and deliver something of value. But that value, again, is not me writing ad copy and that has a hook and that's going to make someone buy today. That's not the value we're talking about. That's company-centric value. We should be talking about customer-centric value, which is different. I think that's kind of what James is bringing out with those 2 points. Let's dive a little deeper. So content with a point of view. Give it to us, James. Like, how do you evaluate content that has a point of view?
I mean, I think the fun way to think about it is to think about like big B2C companies. I mean, like, what's Doritos' point of view? Doritos' point of view is like, just send it. Like, do whatever you want. Like, you watch a Doritos ad and you're engaged with the idea of like the spontaneity of everything. And it makes a ton of sense. Like, Doritos make money off spontaneous people. Nobody's like, you know what, I should do this week. If I'm going to meal prep for this week, I'm going to need to get X bags of Doritos. Like, I need to make sure that I eat enough Doritos on Thursday because I've got a big meeting. Like, that's not how Doritos works. Doritos is a junk food. Like, that's Doritos' point of view. And it comes through so obviously in their advertisements. In B2B, I think it's like obviously way different. And at Gorilla, we write for B2B industrial. And it's like, if you think about engaging someone in your point of view, it's a way of like actually entertaining them. It's like getting them engaged with the thing that you're talking about. It's way more effective to get someone engaged with, this is how we think. Like, we're going to lay it out there and give you some insight into like the way that we think about your industry. And see how you feel about it. That's like gonna be way more effective than like you'll see ads that just like try and capitalize on a trend or like make a crude joke, or it's not about jokes. It's not about, making engaging content is about, dressing someone up as Santa Claus in the warehouse and like, running them around, making a fool of themselves. That's not the goal. That's just entertainment. And it's cheap entertainment. But like, if I can help a fire department understand that our point of view on the fire hose is this, and here's what that actually means. That means that we don't make fire hoses with I'm so deep in the metaphor. We don't make fire hoses with PPE from X country, because in the shipping process they are weakened. Like, there's a reason that we store are fire hoses in this particular material. Like, you start to be able to like engage someone with the world that exists around your product, which is usually something in B2B that this person thinks they know, but they don't. Like, everything is so niche down that like you can help your customer like uncover this world that is every little detail about your product. There's so much more there than your customer has understood in the past, and like it's all about bringing them in a way that like comes in through your point of view.
Yeah, I think what's interesting again is I'm just gonna keep laying this out as we talk. So, good content has purpose. What does it mean to have purpose? You have a point of view. You deliver value. I think as you were talking, James, what also reminded me is to have a point of view and deliver value, you have to have a strategy, and that strategy is just as important as the content itself. And as we tell that story to firemen who need fire hoses, there needs to be a strategy to get that story to them, and then help them understand how they fit within that world. I want to give another example as I was just reading a case study about this really popular brand that I think most people know, which is Yeti coolers. And they've done kind of what we're talking about here is they have a point of view, which is the coolers that you need to do the things that you love. Go outdoors, fishing, all these things. The coolers that you buy at Walmart, the gas station, they're not made for the lifestyle you want to live, right? A lot of their content speaks about that. That you want this lifestyle, these are the best kind of coolers for it. And they've also done some strategic things, which this is more on the business side, but I just think it's interesting with this conversation is like they wouldn't take their coolers and sell them at Walmart at first. They would only take the coolers, Yeti coolers, and sell them at local bait and tackle stores. Again, the people who are living the lifestyle who need the coolers the most. And a lot of their content speaks this way. Do they have influencers that share their content? No. There was one of their most popular posts is from Kim Kardashian talking about the Yeti cooler. She does not work for them. Instead, they actually pay, again, local fishermen to talk about the Yeti cooler. Again, local influencers who live this POV and lifestyle. Again, that's like everything we're talking about, right? Like, here's the strategy. Now they need to offer the point of view and add value and like push out in content in many different ways. What do you think about that? I'm just kind of giving us a real life example.
Yeah, I think that I didn't know any of that about kind of their. I don't know a lot about Yeti, but I do kind of. I guess I see exactly where they're coming from and not wanting to pay Kim Kardashian to talk about. Like, there's an amount that they've found a way to make their company stand for something. That's a lot simpler to do, or a lot easier to do when you have just like a an immense budget and your audience is like everybody, versus like a lot of the writing that I do where it's like you can't make a company stand for something when your audience is like, or you can, but you wouldn't really notice if your audience is 25,000 people. Like, what's the actual number of people on earth that would ever buy an $800,000 industrial oven? It's probably pretty small. So you wouldn't even notice if you stood for something. But I think that's like a great extreme example of what's happening when you're talking about point of view. It's like you're just connecting people with the way that you need to think to want a Yeti cooler. And in terms of like, you kind of started talking about distribution. That kind of makes me think of like, so like if you're thinking about a channel that you're putting this content onto, it's like, because engage is a very important word there, not just having a point of view. Like, anyone can have a point of view. It takes a lot of skill to bring someone into it. There's a lot that comes down to like, this person is scrolling a feed. If they're on social media, they're doing it primarily subconsciously. It's like design matters. The visual composition matters because it's the thing that is going to connect with your prospect's subconscious and alert them, hey, this is something worth actually thinking about. If you stop scrolling and put your mind into this ad, it will be worthwhile. Like, that is what the ad does. And that's like your opportunity. You have this, you just, the goal is to steal into their actual mind, like to get them to actually think about it. The amount of people that view your content is relatively irrelevant. The amount of people that think about it is what's important. And they could be people who disagree with you. They could be people whose point of view is just so radically different from yours. But the process of like getting people to spend time thinking about the way that you think about the world is only going to end positive. Like, that is, if you can do that consistently, that is positive. It's just, it's gonna keep going up. That's where you talk about like compounding results. That's the whole point of like the old SEO game. And it's just, there's better ways to do that now. But the ultimate goal is the same. If everyone in your target market thinks about the world the way you do, or at least understands that point of view and where you're coming from, you're in a very good place. And then the only thing left for you to do with content is to give people something valuable enough that they want to consume more of your content in the future.
Yeah, I think what's interesting with one more comment about the Yeti cooler example is we started the show with like, can you really change someone's mind with content? I think what the Yeti cooler example shows is you're not changing anyone's mind, right? It's someone needs a cooler or they don't need a cooler. It's more of what you said, James, is I'm showing the way that people can think about this point of view and what it means to have this particular cooler for my life. I think with B2C examples, it's easy to break that down in overview. I think with B2B, you can do the same thing. I think an example I would offer is from the B2B space is again, like using a client that James and I once worked on, and they talked about this idea of manufacturability and they wrote content around it. I think that fits with their point of view. Again, their content speaks more to how can we make it easier on my customer by offering things that are easy to manufacture and what happens downstream. To me, that's good content. That has purpose. It engages their customers with a pain point that they have, which is sourcing components and costs and all that. It offers a point of view, and value is our point of view is we want to help people at all times if we can. We're going to go the extra mile by helping you with creating components that are better with manufacturability. We'll just draw them up for you, right? We'll source the components for you. And then they make content around that, right? So I'm just offering this because this can happen in B2B, like we're doing it. I just want to give a concrete example. Any thoughts about that one, James?
Not at all. I think they would be the example I would turn to in terms of like talking about point of view, just because I feel like I've written so much for them. But I think like if you're in a B2B situation and you're struggling to identify like what should our point of view be, or what is our point of view, is a good first question. But if you find out you don't have one, you're in a fun place, because the next question is more interesting, which is what should our point of view be? I highly recommend like just consume like Andy Raskin podcasts, like The Bigger Narrative, I think is what it's called. And it's all about like the old game and the new game. It's like, what is the mindset change that leads people to understanding me? Like, what for this particular client that Aaron mentioned before, they manufacture custom cables. And the mindset change is, okay, I was an engineer who, the cable is such a small part of this huge equipment. And I send it off to my electrical guy, and he just specs in like components that he's familiar with, stuff that he, or stuff that he's heard is really great. And we just take bids on cost, because it's just not the thing that's important to us. And then what happens is we end up dealing with cable as a sort of triage afterwards. It's like, well, we'll solve all these problems that come up as they come up. It's not the end all be all. Well, the mindset shift is like, this is a little thing that could become a big problem if you just don't do it right the first time. And like, so let's just get some help and do it right the first time, and we'll be that help. And it's not, it ends up not being that hard to find like the real decision that a best fit customer of yours is making when they choose to work with you. It's just about like finding whatever framework you need to see it. And once you see it, you'll become like endlessly capable of talking about it in any format. And it's simple and fun that way. So I would recommend like the bigger narrative as a good entry point into thinking about like what is the real buying decision that needs to happen, and then what is the like mindset shift that my entire market would have to go through to all of a sudden think that, oh my gosh, my company is the freaking best, like they are the leader, because now everyone has your point of view. You're muted, dog.
We're keeping that in. Let's keep that in. That's perfect, James. I think mindsets are very crucial to good content in that question. I think what you said about before and after, I really want to linger on that thought. So, again, we can't convince someone today that they need to buy custom cable right now. That's a desire they already have. But what we can show them with good content is what their world looks like before this custom cable solution and after this custom cable solution. Maybe that's a good framework to getting your POV out there. That's the one that was sticking out to me. The other comment I want to make, and this will kind of lead us in a different direction, is we've already talked about for about 20 minutes, and we didn't mention like how long the content is. We didn't mention like what format it is. We didn't mention like specifically, does it have to be video versus written word? I think from our point of view, I'm going to ask you, James, is like, that's not what we mean by good content. Those are the things that can be symptoms of good content. But again, good content, it has a purpose. It has a point of view, delivers value. It's backed by a strategy. These are pieces of good content. It's not, again, exactly what the content is made of, right? What do you think about that, James?
Yeah, I think that marketing folks in general have this tendency to like want to talk about like the details of executing something as like the end all be all of what that thing is, you know. And it's like, so you would say something like, well, good content is going to be multimedia. It's going to be, and like, if you focus on being able to deliver on multimedia and short, consumable by SERP bot or AI, if like that's like where you start, like it's great. Like AI is going to be able to read a bunch of your crappy content. Like there's no point in doing that. Like you have to nail down the actual important stuff first, or again, all of this work that you're doing is just going to be law of averages marketing. And I think it's like the biggest reason why I don't like engage in the general discourse about marketing, is because people just, it's like everyone's just out to like complete more activities than the other person. And it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I think that if you start thinking about things this way and you feel like you've got this down, it's a great time to like start thinking about, okay, now like I'm reading a lot about incorporating video. Perfect. Like you've already got your point of view. You feel like you're cooking at like delivering value and engaging people with that point of view. Absolutely. Like start like reaching for all the other, you know, all the other work that you're going to have to do. But until then, like, you need to know that you can deliver on those two things first. I think that it would be totally worth, us, um, you know, bringing like a very particular expert in to talk about, like, okay, like, what does website content look like? How to design, like, how do you lay out content for mobile on your website? Or how do writing content for the feed, like, tactically. But you could attend 85 million webinars about doing that. And if you don't know your company's point of view and you don't know how to engage someone with it, it's useless. You've wasted so much time. You're the person populating my feed with bad ads. So, like, I think that I'm very glad that we have avoided talking about that stuff, because it's a separate topic um, for someone who has a separate question, than can I change someone's mind? Because you don't change someone's mind with video or with animation. You change it with an idea and an ability to engage them with that idea.
That is just so sweet and well said that I don't really have anything to add, James. I think that's the theme of the episode. Something that reminds me is this is purposeful marketing for the everyday practitioners. We know that you do tactics. We know that you may do some of these tactics James is talking about. Why we want to create this space is so we can all have the conversation about what is that purpose, because I think that's what is missing, right? And to go to the delivering value piece, so we can wrap up here, is a comment we made earlier is, again, Ogilvy saying you can't create demand. But I think in demand creation, that terminology, you can deliver value. And I think that's the one thing that I do buy into. And again, once you have your point of view, you can engage a prospect with it, you can deliver a value. Now just offer that to the world. I think that may be the beauty of what has transpired with this whole demand capture, demand creation. But I think, again, that's just terminology. What we're asking you to do is really think about what is good content. And to us, it's has purpose. There's a POV that you engage your prospect with. You deliver value, and it's backed by strategy. Like, that's good content. And it's not tactics. It's not create demand framework, capture demand framework. It's not these things that we hear on LinkedIn. Again, it's these other things. I think that's going to set you up for success. Any final words, James, just on anything I said, or just any other thoughts?
No, I don't think so. It was great hanging out with you.
No, I love these topics. As James is writer, I once was a writer. These are dear to my heart. I think the written word still has a place. I will pitch that we are doing another AI conversation at some point next couple of weeks here. Maybe we have some follow-up comments on AI and content, as we spoke about that the last time. So for my listeners, appreciate you. We are taking guests. Raise your hand, DM us on LinkedIn. I do answer those, and we do book people that way. This is available on Apple, Spotify, Google, YouTube, wherever you want to consume your content, we'll be there. And yeah, give us some feedback, because what we want to do is get better at creating good content. And what we need is you to help us with that. So appreciate you all. Have a good one. Thank you, listeners.